Good morning. My name's Claire Schleicher. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of our board of directors. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a community of youth, adults, and children of diverse theologies, held together by covenant, not creed. Together we share the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. May you know deep welcoming and belonging in this place. Today we welcome to the pulpit our Director of Religious Education, Amy Peterson. We also welcome our guest musician, Jasper Lepak. To share a request for today's meditation, please place it in the chat box before the opening hymn or add it over to our meditation bowl. The meditation bowl is over in our Soul Work Center here by the windows. And also in the Soul Work Center, you can find activities to help people of all ages engage with today's service. Welcome, visitors. We are so glad you're here. And if you are visiting with children, we do offer spiritual growth opportunities for our younger beloveds at the 11 a.m. service here. And at both services, we offer nursery care. As always, your children are also welcome to stay with us during the service. We welcome the noises and the movements and the mirth that little ones bring. Let's take a moment and wave to those who are online as well. Welcome, Zoomers. Welcome to our church. Together, we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
Strikes like lightning, shatters the sky, rolls through you like thunder, cracks your world open wide. You ride the waves as you push through the pain. You have never felt so strong. It pulls like quicksand, swallows the ground, you're caught in a riptide. You can't swim your way out, you lean into the flow as you learn to let go. You have never felt so strong. But the world doesn't want your strength. It expects you to find your way back to your old shape, to your old shape. It moves like a river, sweeps you away. Say goodbye to your old self. You will never be the same. You are more than you were. You give more than you take. You have never felt so strong. But the world doesn't want your strength. It expects you to find your way back to your old shape, to your old shape. And then she's with you, pressed to your skin, her eyes wide open, just taking you in. You hold her gaze, so in love and so amazed. You have never felt so strong. You have never felt so strong. But the world doesn't want your strength. It expects you to find your way back to your old shape, to your old shape, to your old shape, and forget
My name is Amy. I'm your Director of Religious Education, and my pronouns are she, her. Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place.
My name is Bjorn Peterson, and I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. And from a young age, I was fascinated by far-off lands and new cultures. Nothing excited me quite like an adventure story of someone traveling to places unknown. As I got older, I developed interests in specific places and fell in love with cultural specifics of certain spaces. But I also began to develop biases against places and peoples that had little or no basis in actual knowledge. They were just prejudices disguised as preferences. One of those places was India. Don't ask me why or how it started, but even as I visited and studied more and more places, India remained on my no thank you list. And then I met Pratik. Pratik was a colleague in my doctoral program, and we became fast friends. He was so smart and curious, and we spent hours sharing about the nuances and long histories of our different cultures. He explained what it was like to grow up where he did with his family, and I did the same. When the time came to choose the site of my PhD research, Pratik persuaded me that India, a place I had become fascinated by, was exactly where I should do my project. He connected me with an organization high in the Indian Himalayas, and before I knew it, I had been invited to work with community workers in northern India. Over the course of our relationship, I found a deep love and respect for Indian history, culture, and the diversity it contains. Now it's one of my favorite cultures. It finally taught me something I would have been embarrassed to admit I didn't fully know. Every person and their stories are worth hearing and getting to know. The question is not whether another person is worth my time, but whether I will adopt the heart and posture of curiosity it takes to know the worth of everyone for ourselves. For me, it helps to think about how to soften my heart to people not only far from me, but those I encounter every day. It has become my spiritual practice to soften my heart, not because I am perfectly welcoming to all, but because I know how easily we dismiss those who seem different to us, even in our own communities. To remind myself, I wrote a poem called Softer Heart. It goes like this. I'm looking for my softer heart, the one made from taffy. This peanut brittle is not as smooth as it seems, shards in the mouth, glass masquerading as candy. I need the watery resilience of a heart that's sweet and stretchy, a fistful unweighed flung into the bag and shared in the town square, with the slow, smooth bites that refuse to be rushed. I want that strawberry song, that tooth-hugging insistence, the lock-jawed, root-jarring unchomping, where the heart's reach resists release, and love elongates our common table. Today, let us light the chalice for greeting discomfort with an open heart. Let us choose a posture of curiosity that opens up the possibility for beauty and community beyond what we have thought was possible.
I'm Reverend Jessica. I am the lead minister of this congregation, and my pronouns are she, her. Please rise in body or spirit and join us for our opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please join in our opening hymn, number 361, in your gray hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
I'd like to invite those young and young at heart forward for a story this morning. Join me and my friend up here. Good morning. Good morning. So this morning, I am going to invite you all to be using your imaginations a little bit. So if it helps to kind of get comfortable in your seats and sort of turn on your imaginations. But we're going to start with a question. Have you ever had to do a hard thing? Have any of you had to do a hard thing? Yeah. Maybe you had to go somewhere new and you weren't quite sure what to expect. Or maybe you had to try a new food that was different for you, or you learned something new. When you have to do a hard thing, what is it that you do before you do the hard thing? Maybe you might take a deep breath. Let's try that. That must have been hard too. Aww. Oh yeah, that is hard. And so sometimes we might take deep breaths and slow our heart rate as much as we can, or we might take time to think about what we're going to say or do, or we might practice with a friend before we have a hard conversation. Have you ever done that before? Practiced having a hard conversation with a friend? So I have a story about a time when I had to do something that was really kind of scary, and about the brontosaurus who helped me. So something that's really important to me, and you might know this if we've ever had a long conversation, is that I think it's really, really important to help people remember to vote and to vote thoughtfully. And to help with this, I decided to work with people who also agreed with me that it's important to vote and to vote thoughtfully. And you know what we did? We went and we knocked on doors, and we talked to people we didn't know at all about the election. Now, maybe you all are super brave, and maybe this sounds like a super amount of fun for you, but for me and lots of other people who do this work, it's kind of scary. We knew that we would be talking to people who might disagree with us or might be very unhappy to see us, but we also knew that we might get to talk to other people about how to be a thoughtful voter, and we did. But I was nervous. Would people want to talk to me? Would people be mean to me? Yeah, a little bit sometimes. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling nervous and scared, I sometimes get a little impatient, maybe a little judgy, and sometimes I even forget why I wanted to do that important thing in the first place. So I did my best. I took a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath. And I tried to slow my heart rate. Let's try to slow down our heart rate. And then I did one more thing every time before I went and knocked on doors. I thought about a person that I know in my life who is the best listener I have ever met, and I tried to be just like her. I thought about this friend and how she is present and kind and loving and patient and curious, even when the conversation is super hard. And so, as I refocused and calmed down, I also remembered that I was going to get to learn something probably when I talked to strangers at the door. Can you think of somebody in your life who's a really good listener? Does somebody come to mind for you? Yeah? Who comes to mind for you? Your mom's a good listener. Who's a good listener? Yeah, your best friend. So we probably all have somebody who comes to mind for us. And maybe when we're about to have a hard conversation, something that helps is we imagine being like this person, being present in the same way that that person was for us. I haven't forgotten about the brontosaurus. Then one day, a friend and I were knocking on doors together, and he pointed out that we both kind of looked and acted kind of the same way when we were talking to people at the door. We were both trying our hardest to be calm and patient listeners, and it showed in our posture, right? We were kind of leaning in, we had our hands in front of us, and we were nodding and being patient. He said we looked like kindly brontosauruses. Yes. We both have dinosaurs, that's right. So this made me laugh. And it made me imagine what it would be like instead if we tried to talk to people like we were a hungry velociraptor or an angry T-Rex instead. Probably wouldn't go as well, would it? But this joy helped me to ease my worries even more. I was just your friendly neighborhood brontosaurus coming to talk to you about politics. No big deal. Can you imagine what it looks like and feels like to be a kindly brontosaurus? I'm going to ask you to imagine that for a moment. Yeah. Yeah, maybe a T-Rex could be nice when they're not hungry. That's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah. So my friend's observation reminded me that it really, really matters how we show up for one another, and that we can do hard things with friends and sometimes dinosaurs at our side. So you all are going to get to go to your circles and think a little bit more about kindly dinosaurs, or maybe impatient dinosaurs, or the kinds of people and creatures that help us think about how we show up for one another. I'm going to invite us all to rise in body or spirit to sing Go Lift It Up as our children and their facilitators go to their classes.
And
Let's take a breath together. Here we are, around roughly 100 in the room, and online we have 41 households on this wintry morning. We gather this morning to make space to name what's on our hearts, to make space with intention, to name the many ways as humanity we are hurting and we are hopeful all at the same time. We give thanks to Tom this morning for leading singing in the service as well. And so this morning, we lift into care members of this congregation who are struggling, and that might be one of you. And so will you enter a time of prayer and meditation with me? I invite you, if you have something in your hands, to set it down. If you're watching online and maybe you're doing something, maybe you're in the midst of whisking that waffle batter, maybe set it aside for a minute as we make space to center in, to tune into your heart, to tune in to that part of you that said, I need to go to church this morning. Breathe into that space. We hold in care this morning our custodian, John Sisterman, as he mourns his wife, Karen, who passed away right before Christmas. We also hold in care member Larry Sturl as he is home recovering from a knee replacement. We also hold in care the Hellenbrand family, Jeff, Emily, Roe, and Ruby, as they grieve the loss of their 2.5-year-old pug, Olive, who passed this week due to complications recovering from surgery, sending them great care. And now is the time when you are invited to name into this room, into this space, and if you're watching on Zoom, you can name it into your space, people who you want to send care to this morning. May these names uttered from our hearts be held in love, be reminded that we are all connected by that divine thread that weaves within and among us. And maybe the person that you needed to name was yourself. We hold in care the people within this space, within this community who are struggling, our own personal struggles, people who are struggling with economic instabilities, people who are living with marginalized identities, who are afraid for the future, afraid for the current reality. People who are struggling within relationships, struggling with parenting. Those who held it together through the holidays and are feeling the crash right now. We also hold in care the struggles of our wider humanity. Those who are affected by the fires in Southern California, those who've lost their homes, who have lost beloveds. We also hold the grief of our planet that is burning because of what humanity has done to it. And we pray to notice beauty as we make our way carrying so much. We pray to keep our hearts open to be curious about people's stories. We pray to keep working for climate justice, for humanity, and for ourselves. Help us to return to those spiritual practices which ground us in the midst of it all. Help us to remember we can return to this community again and again and be a little less alone. Amen, and blessed be. Please remain seated for our hymn number 1023 in your teal hymnal, Building Bridges. Do you want me to give the round instructions? Okay, great. We're going to do rounds. Let's do 3 rounds with the third one a cappella. Great. And so, sorry, can I do math? We'll do 3 rounds when we're in the round, but we'll sing it together first, so a total of 4 times. So we'll sing it all together first. This is why I am not your music director. So we'll sing it all together first, and then we'll break into 2 sections. This one, which will be the first section, I will lead, and this one, which Tom will lead, and do it 3 times through.
Now is the time where we make space for announcements and our offertory. In community news announcements, today, after the second service, all who are interested in membership are invited to join Reverend Jack for the Membership 2 class in the Wheatley Room. See Reverend Jack for more details. There are so many wonderful events happening this week, and we invite you to join us for Wednesday evening. We have a meal at 5:30 p.m., followed by several opportunities for connection, including choir practice, our board meeting, intergenerational game night, and a parent circle. Thursday evening, Reverend Jessica is leading an informal book discussion on the novel Babel by R.F. Kuang. All are welcome on Zoom. See the e-news for the link or email Reverend Jessica. And so ends our announcements. This is the moment in the service when we practice gratitude and support in the form of giving in our offering plate. The gifts collected today will go to support the mission of this congregation, to grow our souls and serve the world. There are a couple ways that you can give today. You can use the text to give feature. The number is on the screen. You can give on the website, or you can place cash or a check in the offertory basket. Thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life that we live together. The offering will now be gratefully collected.
When I was the moon, how I shined through the night. When I was the moon, I was proud of my light. the moon, when I was the moon. When I was the moon, I was never shy when I waxed or waned. I knew that time had its circles and its games. I wasn't afraid to take some time away. I could disappear and be okay. No, I am not at my full glow tonight. Yes, I'm a sliver of ancient light. When I was the moon, I was never afraid to change. I knew my power at every phase. When I was the moon, I never cried for myself. My heart was big enough to see the universe that holds you and me. The tides, how they flood, and the tides, how they expose. When I was the moon, I knew what the ocean knows, that every part of life is a mystery to behold. When I was the moon, when I was the moon, I knew rhythms and circles and rhythms and circles, and I wasn't afraid to change.
I forgot one announcement when compiling the announcements. This Thursday, we have Conversations at the Heart of It, which is our group that meets for people over the age of 60, Thursday at 11. And they will be hearing from me this Thursday and my story. So all over the age of 60 are welcome. Our first reading this morning is from the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, and it's from April 2023 from On Being with Krista Tippett. One of the fundamental issues we need to talk about is, what is our responsibility to one another? This is a moral question. It's a spiritual question that has implications for policies and programs, but it has to start at the moral and spiritual level. We can build the best programs and policies in the world, but my belief is that none of these will work as well as they need to if we are not clear on the values that should be guiding us in this work. If you were to ask people right now, what are the values that guide us as the United States of America? I don't know if that you would, I have lots of commentary that I'm really resisting adding, I want you to know. I'm going to keep reading his words. I don't know that you would get a clear, consistent list of values. Everyone may have their own sense of what that is. And one of my beliefs here is that we can't get clarity on that unless we have a conversation as a country about that. My belief is that we need to be a nation that is kind, where people take care of one another, where people step up for one another because they can and because they know that we are all better off when we are all, in fact, better off. And I want us to be a nation where people are generous with one another, where they recognize that there are times all of us are going to be in need, where all of us may stumble and fall, but we have to help each other up. Our second reading this morning is from James Luther Adams in his essay, Spirit and Forms of Freedom. Idolatry occurs when a social movement adopts as the center for loyalty an idol, a segment of reality torn away from the context of universality, an inflated, misplaced abstraction made into an absolute. Liberalism in its generalized form has been the chief critic of the idolatries of creedalism, of church or political authoritarianism. But in its specialized form, it has generated a new idolatry, the idolatry of possessive individualism. This idolatry in the name of individualism and the free market eschews responsibility for the social consequences of economic power. It has become virtually unaccountable to the general public. What began as a liberating individualism has become a pervasive conglomeration of power, an oppressive idolatry, a new absolute.
This is a song I wrote during the pandemic that I didn't quite finish. I finished it recently. It feels more present now. It's a list of the ways I want to show up in the world. It's called On the Inside. I want to be free with my smile. I want to be friends with my neighbors. I want to be generous with strangers. I want to be brave with my love. I want to be open when I listen. I want to jump in without permission. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. I want to be bold with my words. I want to be honest with my pain. I want to be gentle with my failures. I want to be willing to change. I want to see the light in the dark. I want to hear the truth in every heart. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. I want to feel at home in my skin, and I want joy that I believe in. I want to show agency and vision. I want to be patient with my dreams. I want to take risks that open doors. I want to have faith that there is more. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. I don't want fear to keep me living on the inside anymore. And when I can't see the light and it feels like hate will win, I'm gonna reach deep inside and find something more to give. And when the hurt is too old and the anger burns my skin, I'm just gonna sit in the silence until I can let love in. I'm gonna speak up for the truth. I'm gonna show up for my neighbors. In this world there are no strangers. There's just me and you. I'm gonna get up when I fall down. I'm gonna do the right thing when no one's around. I won't let fear keep me living on the inside anymore. I won't let fear keep me living on the inside anymore. I won't let fear keep me living on the inside anymore.
you for your music. When I was young, I was a ski jumper. It was somewhat of a family tradition for us. My brothers, my cousin, my dad, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, all were ski jumpers. And so in the winter, my parents and my brothers and I would pile into the family van and become weekend warriors driving all around the Midwest for tournaments. So ski jumping was like a thing for my family. But by all accounts, I was not a great ski jumper. And while I did find jumping to be thrilling and fun, I was mostly just kind of terrified of heights and didn't really jump hills much larger than medium-sized hills. But it had been made clear to me by my grandparents very early on that they did not think that I should be allowed to participate because I was a girl. So for that reason, I was committed. Most of the jumps I skied had a kick-out start at the top. So I would climb the stairs, which often happened to be ice-covered 2x2s nailed precariously into 2x4s, with my skis on my shoulder. And when I reached the top, I'd strap on my skis, I'd lower my goggles, check my helmet, and then I would stand there, my belly just full of the raging fire of my newfound feminism, mixed together with fear and plenty of ambivalence. Then I would take a deep breath, and I would probably snap at any poor soul who dared to offer any pointers while I gathered what little gumption I had. And then I would do what my brother affectionately termed the waddle. Instead of kicking out of the box with confidence and authority, like I really meant it, I would slowly inch my way forward, my skis creaking on the snow and ice and teetering over the edge, until blessed gravity finally took over and pulled my shaky skis and shaky me into the track, hopefully, and down the in-run, making it abundantly clear to all who observed that I was not really all that sure that I could. I do not recommend ski jumping without being really committed to it. Years later, when I was in college, my ski jumping years firmly behind me, I signed up for an independent study course with a professor of mine to examine philosophy of religious language. We spent much of that semester debating the meaning of the word faith and what it meant to be religious. Spoiler alert, we didn't solve it, but we sure did get frustrated trying. Faith, my professor suggested, is often thought of as holding a belief in the face of contrary evidence. I hated this. Faith, I argued with all of my Unitarian Universalist heart, I think has more to do with what you commit to. That is, all of us develop beliefs and values in our lives, but we have a responsibility to be disciplined about examining those beliefs and values, and then we can do our best to be faithful to what we have learned and who we aspire to be, like we mean it. So in my Unitarian Universalist upbringing, I had learned about Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams, who asserted, "An unexamined faith is not worth having, for it can only be true by accident. A faith worth having is faith worth discussing and testing." So I came by my views on faith honestly. I remember that throughout my conversations with my professor, I often found that my thoughts went back to the top of the ski jump and to other times when I had found myself half-heartedly participating in life. I found that these were times when I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, or when I lacked confidence, or when I hadn't put in the work, or I was just unsure. And I don't think you have to be a philosopher to know that discipline, rigor, examination can be really, really helpful in building confidence. Confidence, which happens to be derived from the same Latin word as faith, fide. In short, doing something, anything, like we really mean it, with confidence or faithfully, I'll let you choose your own adventure with those words, it requires something of us. It requires a posture of curiosity and self-reflection and self-awareness. And then it requires that we do the work to follow through, to live it out loud. And this might be why we have all landed here, right? Part of our job here is to do the work of holding the why and the how right in front of us. We say here that we grow our souls and serve the world. To me, this speaks directly to the work of examining our individual and collective beliefs and the values and doing the work of living into them. This is not easy work. And good news, the work is never done. And this work requires us to be curious and to be uncomfortable, and at times, of course, none of us do this work flawlessly. As an aside, Unitarian Universalist congregations often get stuck in conversations, maybe little debates, about whether our worship services are too much about action and not enough about spirituality, and vice versa. Maybe you feel like we talk too much about spirituality and not enough action. But what I've always loved about this particular congregation is that its mission, grow and serve, holds these two in balance. If we are serving without growing, we run the risk of harming ourselves and those we seek to serve. But if we turn completely inward, particularly in a faith that also tends to value an individual search for truth and meaning, we run the risk of developing a faith that James Luther Adams warned us of, one that is unaccountable to the general public. Growing and serving need one another, and we need one another. We need to grow and serve together in accountable community. So as I was knocking on doors this election season, I also happened to be reading at the same time a lot about the loneliness epidemic, our increased polarization, the glorification of rugged individualism, and the fracturing of community in America. I read the alarming reports by our Surgeon General on loneliness and some of the work by social scientist Robert Putnam. You might be familiar with his work called Bowling Alone or The Upswing. I also refamiliarized myself with Hannah Arendt's work on the origins of totalitarianism, and I also observed. First of all, a little confession. I myself have not always been excited to see political canvassers at my door. Maybe you can relate to this. You can be the kindliest of all the brontosauruses, but there are myriad reasons why somebody might not be in a position to engage with a stranger about politics. So I have a lot of grace for those who just couldn't when I showed up at their doors. But also I had so many lovely conversations, both with folks who shared my own political bent and those who really disagreed with me. There were lots of experiences that challenged my assumptions, and I uncovered biases that I did not know that I had. I learned a ton. As a whole, it probably won't surprise you to hear that I also had lots of experiences that reflected a culture that is, in fact, very fractured and very lonely. I spoke with many people who felt frustrated by a general lack of support. There were many people who expressed not knowing their neighbors or even fear about getting to know them at all, and plenty of folks who just felt that it was improper to talk about politics with others. I noticed a lot about how neighborhoods have been developed. Some of them seemed designed to discourage community gathering spaces and to discourage getting to know your neighbors. And we all know that loneliness, in addition to all the negative health effects for individuals that we've heard about, also presents an existential threat to our democracy. Hannah Arendt, in her work, The Origins of Totalitarianism, wrote extensively about the perils of loneliness and the rise it plays in totalitarian government. She wrote in 1951, I'll share with apologies for the dated gendered language, "Totalitarian government, like all tyrannies, certainly could not exist without destroying the public realm of life. That is, without destroying, by isolating men, their political capacities. But totalitarian domination as a form of government is new in that it is not content with this isolation and destroys public or private life as well. It bases itself on loneliness and the experience of not belonging to the world at all, which is among the most radical and desperate experiences of man. So it's true that conversations about politics can indeed be hard and uncomfortable, but like all things we hope to do well, democracy requires something of us. And sometimes that something looks like opening your door and having brave conversations. I am sure that I am not alone in feeling like our democracy is precariously teetering over the edge. And I don't know if knocking on doors can help get us firmly right on track. But in my best estimation, showing up in the world with a posture of curiosity to meet other humans as humans right where they are certainly can't hurt. And it's okay if knocking on doors and talking to strangers just isn't your jam. There are many other ways that we can work together to combat loneliness in our world. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy suggests there are actually 4 things that we can all do every day. He says, the first is to spend 15 minutes a day connecting with someone you care about, someone you don't live with. That can be calling them up, it could be a video conference with them, it could be sending them a text to just say, hey, I'm thinking of you. I just wanted you to know that you're on my mind. The second, and this points back to our kindly Brontosaurus, is to give people your full attention when you talk to them. The third thing that's important to do is to find opportunities to serve others. We know that even when our cup feels empty, that serving others and serving alongside others is a strong connecting experience. And the fourth and final one is around solitude. And this is also counterintuitive because you might think solitude, if I'm lonely, do I really need more time alone? But loneliness is not so much about how many people you have around you. It's about whether you feel like you belong. And this is work that I think we can continue right here together in this congregation. Last April, I shared one of the reasons that I think communities like this one are so important is because they were one of the last few places where we gather in intentionally multi-generational communities in our society. We value holding space for families of all shapes and sizes and ages and can build communities of care and support here. We desperately need those spaces. We do not always execute this perfectly. It can get messy, but we continue to have conversations about how to gracefully and safely hold the sometimes conflicting needs that we have when we gather in community. These sometimes uncomfortable conversations about how to do this well are conversations worth having. In March of 2020, when the whole world shut down, we as a staff here struggled with how to keep our people connected. We tried our best to piece together what we called care conveners at that time. We assigned volunteer leaders in the congregation lists of congregants, and we asked them to call and check in on them periodically. I think some of our care conveners had some success in offering support and care and connection to the people on their lists, but for many families who were just trying to help their kids figure out Google Classrooms while figuring out how to work from home at the same time, a phone call from a person they didn't really know likely just felt like one more thing to do. We were stuck trying to build community infrastructure during a crisis. I felt similarly about door knocking during the election. You can have the best candidates and the best canvassers in the world, but if the culture is not one that values democracy and is not willing to do the work of democracy and engage in discourse, of course, there is little hope of success. I've thought lots since that time in 2020 and since the election about what it would be like to help our congregation connect in a deeper way, one that fosters connections and relationships that support one another, so that when life happens, none of us are left wondering who to call. So this month, we are launching a family ministry team. My hope is that this team will take on the question of how we can co-create communities of care and support for families of all ages and shapes and sizes. We will hear more about the loneliness epidemic and the need for strong communities during our Wednesday forum on January 22nd. And we will also use some of this time to talk about this new team, our family ministry team, in future meeting times. I hope that if your passion is building community, that you'll join us. But if joining a team is not your speed, I hope you'll consider helping us build community in other supportive ways. Here are some ideas for you. Simply come on a Wednesday night to share a meal and get to know others in our church community. Consider sitting at a table with someone you do not know. Bring a deck of cards or a backgammon set or any other board game that speaks to you. We do have an intergenerational game night that we host once a month, and we will also soon be looking for more volunteers to play games and do crafts and just help us be present with children on Wednesday night while parents can have time to connect and support one another. You also can sign up to connect with other adults as part of a small group. Next week, you'll be able to sign up for theme circles that will run through May. We also are looking for folks to serve as facilitators for our circles for children and youth on Sunday mornings, and we have joyfully welcomed many new families into our community this year, and we really need more volunteers who can help us hold this space well for our children, youth, and families. Serving in this way really is a fun and easy way to make connections and an amazing way to get to know Unitarian Universalism or experience Unitarian Universalism through the eyes of our children and youth for the first time. I also want you to know that our collective community posture matters. How we are showing up for one another matters. Some of the most formational experiences I had in my own congregation growing up were simply observational learning experiences. I loved just being present in the sanctuary and watching how the adults were present in the room. And during coffee hour, I got to hear all kinds of conversations about politics and life and theology. I got to witness adult UUs doing the work of an examined faith in the context of a loving community. It was a gift. Know that being human in public spaces, being a kid in public spaces, and especially parenting in public spaces is really, really hard. So greet one another with patience and grace and listen to each other's stories. It really matters. Finally, let's keep showing up like we mean it. If we are to be a congregation, a community, a nation that is in fact kind, where people take care of one another, where people step up for one another because they can and because they know we are all better off when we are all in fact better off, then we have got to keep showing up, even when it's hard. May it be so. I'm going to invite us to rise in body or spirit for hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. It's in your teal hymnal.
After the service ends today, we invite you to join us for coffee hour in the social hall. We will have 2 committees with informational tables at coffee hour, and our Facing Race Committee and the Pink Haven Group, which is a subset of our Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Committee. They're working on supporting trans refugees within our state. Please seek out their tables and find out about the good work that they are doing. And now join me in our closing words. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steal our will and the love of truth forever guide us. Please be seated for our postlude.
All want something good to leave behind. We want our memory to age just like fine wine. We want to leave knowing we did more right than we did wrong. No one makes it through this life without hurting anyone. We all want a purpose, something to chase our whole life through. We want to find meaning in the work that we do. We want to leave knowing we gave it all that we could give. No one makes it through this life without a reason to live. We all want one great love. We all want one true home. We all want one brave life to call our own. We all want wings that fly. We all want love to set us free. We all want to do something good with our time, leave a legacy. We all want romance, the kind that takes our breath away and stays for a lifetime. Grow stronger every day. We want to live knowing we are loved for who we are. No one makes it through this life without longing and desire. We all want one great love. We all want one true home. We all want one brave life to call our own. We all want wings that fly. We all want love to set us free. We all want to do something good with our time, leave a legacy. Sometimes we leave to follow a dream. Sometimes it takes us down a winding road. We never know just where the path will lead. Sometimes it takes us to another home. We all want one great love. We all want one true home. We all want one brave life to call our own. We all want wings that fly. We all want love to set us free. We all want to do something good with our time.